the Cassius Show. Thank you for tuning in once again. We have a very special caller calling in all the way from Los Angeles, California. We have Pierce on the line. Pierce, hello.
Hi, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing great. Thank you for joining me today. What's going on in LA for you right now?
So right now I'm out here for some meetings and for some photo shoots before I go back for the holidays, but we're just gearing up for the release of my new EP, Influencers, in January 2020.
2020. So that's coming a little bit down the line. How long have you actually been working on this project that's coming up?
So I think we started recording in late spring, early summer this year, so it's been a pretty busy year just trying to get all this content written. And the writing process probably took a lot longer than the recording did, but I'm so happy to be working with such great people in Nashville, which is where I'm based. I fly out to LA a lot because that's where I'm from, but it's great to be in Nashville because I have this incredible production team. Shout out to Invisible Heroes Productions, and so many talented writers are out there where I can just connect and be free as an artist and express the message I need to and write a great pop song with some amazing people. So that, I think we started probably in the winter. So it's been a solid year working on this EP. And I just released my first single from it, Famous, last month. And then there's also a music video for that. And then we're gearing up for Like Kylie to release, November 8th. And then we'll do another single release and then the EP in January. So it's going to be very exciting.
Wow, that does sound very exciting. You've got a lot of stuff lined up. Real quick, mind if I ask you your age?
Sure, I'm 20.
Okay, so we're actually the same age. So at what age did you actually get started with this stuff? Because you made a lot of progress for 20.
Oh, good. Well, thank you. I started writing at 13, and I honed that craft for a little bit. I actually was hired as a writer in Los Angeles at 15. So it was a pretty short period of time to, make it professionally. And I've been an actress and a model for a long time. Before that, too, I've been a dancer my whole life. So I've been in the entertainment industry in Los Angeles for my entire life, just making contacts and working as a kid pretty much. So that's why I was able to do things at a young age because I've been working at it my whole life. And so now I'm 20 and coming up on my second ever EP release, this time as a much different kind of sound and brand. So I'm very excited to be continuing my passion.
That's very cool. I like that a lot. What type of writing job did you get when you were 15 in LA? What did they bring you in for then?
So there was a very, very cool blues artist from Armenia who came to LA to try and make it big out here in the American market. He was very famous in his home country, but the American market is very hard to get into, even if you're a big artist in another country. So we were all trying to help him get the right verbiage and the right image for the American blues market out here. So I was brought in because they loved the way I wrote and the imagery I used as a writer. I was always very infused with poetry. That's pretty much my focus, is to try and say everyday things in poetry and then say poetic things in everyday language. So I like to really mix those two mediums as a writer. So I would try to get his metaphors from his own language and from his culture and turn them into something that Americans would relate to. And, we're all human and we all experience the same things. It's just the way we say it. So I would just kind of be the middle person to get his experiences from his country and his culture to translate into the right words that we would all understand in our daily lives here.
That's really interesting. I can imagine it would be a big challenge for somebody from a very far country to sort of get the verbiage and all that type of the pronunciation. I mean, I've considered it hard for me in Canada to make it in LA, but I can only imagine not knowing the language. So that's pretty fascinating to me. You mentioned, of course, the two singles that you have out right now, which are Famous and Like Kylie. And looking into your stuff, you often like to tackle more serious issues, particularly about the effects of social media on culture. I was just wondering if you could tell me more about that.
Absolutely. So the new EP, Influencers, is all themed around social media and the way it's affecting myself and the world around me. I didn't really want to take a direct stance when I wrote this. I really love the way that Lorde writes her music, and I was always a big fan growing up. She just kind of took a phenomenon she saw and wrote it out as if we were seeing through her eyes and feeling her experiences, and that's why I connected with it, because she wasn't telling me how to feel. She
Right.
told me what she was feeling, and I could make my own decision and my own thoughts from her experience. So that's what I really wanted to do with this EP, because there's so much dark and so much light within social media. And to me, it's just so fascinating the way that we have connected to it in every facet of our lives, and it's almost a part of us now. And I don't think we could ever dispense with it. I think it'll even integrate more and more into our culture and our commerce and our society over the years. So from the outside looking in and from actually the inside looking out, because I've been an influencer for a while, so I understand the mechanics of it and the way it works, and then the way it also affects people in society, because no other time period in history have people been able to skyrocket over social hierarchies before. People can now jump over the social hierarchy like no other time in history, because you don't have to have a certain profession or a certain skill people love and that you rise through the ranks. You can just be an influencer and a celebrity overnight almost. And it's been this very weird phenomenon we've never really experienced as people in society. And so I wanted to kind of write about that and see how it's affecting us. And maybe my music could serve as some sort of time capsule that people could look back at and really understand the way that we lived in this weird transition.
I really like that. That's an interesting concept, and it sort of leads me to the question, because you hear a lot about this. You hear a lot about the positives and negatives of social media, sort of in general, but it's not really as focused. What do you find is the biggest negative about social media in your experience as an influencer?
Well, most people say the comparison and the fear of missing out, which you can look at, everyone around the world and think that you're lesser because other people have better lives, but you're not seeing the full picture. So that's really what the mainstream opinion has been. And I'm a little bit worried about how it's interacting with our neurology. And I feel like we don't really understand the way it's affecting us biologically and scientifically yet. And yeah, there's a lot of social issues that go along with it, but I'm, a little bit more worried about what's going to happen, how it's going to rewire our brains, and how we're going to adapt to this new thing. And I feel like life doesn't really seem real to people. That I feel like we're kind of moving in this weird place where not everything is as real and tangible as it should be, because we're seeing so much on a screen. And it's hard to think about the real people behind these things and how, I don't mean to get on video games, and I totally want people to play video games, and I think it's great. But just a good example of this is, like, you can shoot 1 million people and see their brains pop out in a video game, and that's not real at all to you. But that's kind of coming into reality more and more lately, and that's just terrifying to me. So I don't know if people really see things as real anymore, and it's might be affecting us in a very negative way that we don't understand. And I'm obviously not a scientist. I haven't studied this. I'm not sure. But just from, I love psychology, and I really love looking at social trends, and I love biology myself. So as someone who likes to study things like this, that might be a question I could raise, is how is virtual reality affecting us in reality?
Right. So you sort of observe that people are becoming more desensitized, sort of in general, to reality, be
Yes.
it whether people are happy or
Yeah, that's
rich or
what,
famous. Yeah.
right, that's what's starting to bother me a little bit. But also that, you can see other people around the world who are doing much better than you, and that's where a lot of people get depression and anxiety about their lives not being fulfilled, even though we don't see that other people might be suffering, even though they have a cute Instagram photo. So a lot of that has been trying to be mitigated. I see a lot of people online sharing the, before and afters of their Instagram photos, and like that they're not skinny and perfect and beautiful all the time, and that people have a lot of mental health issues we don't see. And so that's been really wonderful. And I think that a lot of people on social media are trying to reach out more and make it a positive experience. Because one thing I love about it is that you can find a community of people who are just like you that you never could before, and you don't have to feel so alone in the world. So I think it's a really incredible way to almost mitigate depression in general. And like, you can see that other people aren't as perfect as you think. And it's really been kind of helpful for me in the last few years when people have started reaching out more and trying to mitigate the depression that comes with social media and the fear of missing out. So I think we're doing an okay job of recognizing what's wrong and trying to find solutions that will help people, but it's still growing so quickly. I just don't know what the next thing will come up that we'll have to deal with.
That's true. It's sort of a never-ending, evolving process, and it is rather new to us as well. So I guess we're gonna have to see where the future takes us in that regard. You started dancing at a very, very young age, and actually performed at many international dance competitions and big events. And it says in 2015, during a school dance competition, you were involved in a life-altering incident. Can you tell me about what that incident was?
Yes, absolutely. So, yeah, I've been a dancer since I was 2. I traveled the world dancing with companies, and I wanted that to be my life. But during a school performance in, I believe, 2015, I was kicked very hard in the right eye, and I suffered a traumatic brain injury. And a lot of people get concussions, and this is a conversation I've been having to have recently, where a concussion and a brain injury is not the same. They are very similar. They have the same starting place, but the end is extremely different. And my entire brain neurology was messed up to the point where I couldn't read or write. I couldn't look at screens, or it would damage my eyes, and my eyes were not relaying the right information to my brain and to my neurons. So it just completely reversed a lot of my mental development. So I had to stop school, I had to stop all my extracurriculars and just kind of stay in a dark room without any screens or outside activity to kind of heal. And art was very therapeutic for me, and songwriting became extremely therapeutic because from all of the isolation and then from the physical effects as well, I was undergoing extreme depression and anxiety and panic attacks. And I couldn't even go to the grocery store. That was too much stimulant for me, and I actually passed out every time I would try to just do something simple things like shopping for food. So yeah, that would be the extent of my panic attacks, and it was not something I understood. It was not something that could be explained. It wasn't like, oh, I'm so stressed out today, or oh, my life is really hard right now, so I'm dealing with this. It was a very physical reaction where my brain was broken and I was having all of these symptoms of mental health and mental illness. So it's really important for people to know about brain injuries to me, because the entire time I was dealing with this, no one would believe me. And that increased the depression and the anxiety and the isolation, because I couldn't prove that I was not okay to people. They couldn't look at my arm and see that it was broken. That it was inside of my brain. I had serious brain damage and bruising. And like I said, the neurons were all misarranged, and you can't see that physically. So most people didn't take me seriously. They just thought that I was tired, or that I was complaining because I could smile in a picture, and they didn't see all the agony I was going through. So it was a really hard time to also be a 16-year-old girl and try to navigate the social structure around me, but being so ill at the same time. So I wrote a song on the new EP called Happy, And it is really dealing with anxiety and depression, and a lot about the time when I was going through absolute hell in my brain injury. And the line goes, sometimes I feel like I'll never be happy. And that is pretty much the basis of most people's depression and what we all feel when we get to that place. And it doesn't have to be a physical injury that brings you there. I get depression all the time from, just being a person, and it's very real, and it affects everyone, I think, and we all have to be aware of it. But it did come all at once, very hard for me from an actual injury. So I was able to experience it in that heightened level. So one of my big missions as an artist is to bring awareness to brain injury. And I would like to partner with the American Brain Injury Association and try to bring more awareness and help to people who have this condition that isn't really taken that seriously in a lot of medical communities. And we need to do a lot more research to help people who suffer from it.
Wow, that's remarkable. And you got me thinking while you were saying that, and then it's funny because you compared it to depression at the end. I was thinking depression itself even isn't a physical ailment. You can't see a scar, you can't really see a scratch or a broken bone.
Exactly.
So many people don't take it seriously, so that must have made it harder for you.
Absolutely. And so much of mental health is that way, where you just can't tell that the person's in absolute agony and something is physically wrong with them, but you can't see it, and it's really hard to explain to people, and no one wants to, it seem weak or appear broken. So a lot of times they don't get the help they need. So a lot of mental health issues is really close to my heart, and I would really love for people to be able to relate to my music, to find some therapy through that, and then also to actually rally around these causes and to get some awareness and some medical research into helping people.
Yes, I think that's great. And you actually started your own charity as well when you were 16 years old. Is that correct? Selling vintage clothing for brain trauma injury?
I did. So I raised money mostly for brain cancer patients, just because that was the need at the time. I knew a lot of people who were struggling with that, and they kept reaching out, and all my friends would send me people that they knew who needed some help. So I put this charity together. I was really good at blogging and modeling at the time, so I knew how to make a website and do e-commerce. So I made my own e-commerce site selling vintage clothing that I would repurpose and model on my friends who were beautiful, and then take photos of it, sell it online, and then give 100% of the proceeds to brain cancer patients who needed money for their chemotherapy. So it was really wonderful. I helped a lot of people, and I wish I could have saved more, but it's just a really hard thing. And when I was going through my injury, I looked at myself and I said, you know what, I'm going through the worst time in my life. I cannot imagine what people who have much worse injuries and situations are going through. So for me, it was a way to heal myself and to heal the community around me, and to understand that there are incredible people out there going through horrible things, and I was given the ability to help them, and that just means the world to me that I was able to do that. So
You spend a lot of time helping other people. I'm curious, how did you get yourself out of that spot that you were in with the depression and the isolation? That must have been incredibly difficult.
it was. It took me about a year of listening to psychology lectures every day. And for my personality type, I really resonated with online psychology lectures, and just understanding what was going on with me helped me a lot. And because it is such a physical thing, and because so many people do experience it, there's some concrete reasons as to why it happens. And when I understood those biological reasons, I could kind of get control over it and not feel like a freak or a failure, or that I was somehow broken or disfigured. Because when you feel like it shouldn't be happening to you and you don't know why and you can't control it, you have no answers and you have no hope. But if you just change your mindset a little bit, like at least for me, I was able to realize, you know what, this is something I'm going through that is normal for my situation. It happens. I can get through it. And it just made more sense to me after that when I could figure out why it was happening. I didn't feel like I was some sort of, deformed person, which just made my anxiety so much worse. If I understood why it was happening, it kind of calmed me down. So that's really what helped me, just listening to psychologists and professionals and understanding what was happening to me. That's the reason why I got out of it.
I like that. So how does life look for you now in terms of physicality? Do you get to enjoy any of the dance things that you used to enjoy or anything else?
Yes. So I remember feeling so broken and so vulnerable that I have worked extremely hard to be as strong physically and mentally as possible. So I get depression still, but I rarely get panic attacks because I'm able to mitigate those and say, okay, my heart rate is increasing. I am very stressed out right now. I'm very emotional. It's going to pass. I can just breathe through it. And I've become strong enough mentally to overcome it. But I work out in the gym at least 2 hours a day. I dance. Sometimes I was teaching dance, but I really love hard physical activity that helps me push myself to my limit. So I've started training jiu-jitsu and Muay Thai, and I have really enjoyed that experience and being around people who are also pushing themselves as hard as they can. And failure is part of it, which I think is so healthy, is to constantly fail at something. You are so humbled, and then you are so driven to finally succeed. And when you see people who are stronger than you and bigger than you also failing and trying to succeed right next to you, it's a really wonderful experience. So that's been where I get most of my passion from recently. I love dance too, and I'd love to dance in some future music videos and to also do some more Broadway shows and try to really have another life as a dancer.
Wow.
But I also love more physical activity that helps me push my boundaries so that I don't ever feel helpless again.
Wow, that's amazing. I mean, you're doing definitely much better than I am, that's for sure. And that's something that I would aspire to get to that level. Certainly.
You can do it.
Yeah, I can do it. I guess I just got to start, right? I see here in your bio that you're interested not only in fashion, it comes up a couple of times, but we have the single about Kylie Jenner, Like Kylie. Any collaborations on the horizon potentially, or would you like for that to happen with her?
I would love to work with her, Kylie Cosmetics.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of her cosmetics line. I use a lot of her lip stains and lip glosses, as well as I have her eyeshadow palette and her eyebrow kit, and I really like what she's done with her whole line. It's wonderful. I'd love to partner with some of the brands she works with, like Fashion Nova. They have a great like Kylie line, and I'm just really impressed with how she's a full-time entrepreneur as well as a young mom, and I think that's a really different and unique image in our society. I am that kind of person who wants to have a family and to be a young mom, so it's wonderful for me to have that kind of an image for a powerful woman to also have a great family life.
The debut EP Influencers comes out in January 2020. Other than the EP, what's next for you in the future, Pierce?
Well, I'm definitely going to try to tour.
Nice.
So watch for some dates on my socials. I'm always doing new social collaborations and partnerships. I'm very expressive on social media. I have this whole Sweet But Psycho brand, like cute but goth and girly. And so it's a whole mess of my two personality types, which is like super punk and rebellious, and then also a total pink princess. So I tried to mix those together and just become this weird creature of pink and goth. So definitely go out and check that out. It's Pierce, and Pierce is spelled PI3RCE, music on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook. Let me know what you think of my weird image and fashion style. I would love to know. But yeah, so that's basically me. I'm going to be with my family for the holidays and then gear up for this great EP. We're going to do an album release party / showcase in LA in in January. So you can definitely check that out for dates if you guys are in the area.
Very cool. I actually will be in the area, so I hope to network with you. And also, if you would ever like to get out to Canada, that would be cool too. We could definitely communicate about something like that in the future.
That sounds awesome. Yeah, I would love to connect with you, and definitely whenever you're in LA, just give me a shout.
Awesome, definitely will. Pierce, thanks so much for your time, and best of luck with everything. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me on. Was a really in-depth interview, and I love that you gave me the respect and the time to share my story.
For sure. Thank you so much. Take care.